Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boom and Bust channel, Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host Terry, and today doing our preview for our NFC wildcard matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is something that I wanted to do, but didn't have a lot of time this year for each game. But preview, just really kind of preview the team we're going against, kind of break down some key matchups, kind of break down some key things that I want to see from our team in order to win, and then also just go a comparison for each position group and kind of say who I think has the edge in each one. And yeah, just an overall preview. So happy that I could do it now for the playoffs. So that's what we're going to get into. Real quick, of course, we're all Bears fans. Man, we want the Bears to win. Nobody's calling himself a Bears fan and is not looking for us to win on Sunday. So please, let's just be together on this. Also, on top of that, let me get this out of the way. I'm not claiming to be an expert on the Philadelphia Eagles or any team outside of the Bears. I watch football, coach football. I can look at it. I can evaluate. If I see it, then I can tell you what I see. I only watch the Bears closely. So this is from, I would say, the last 6 or 7 weeks from the Philadelphia Eagles, kind of looking at their win streak and seeing what kind of trends and things that I saw from that. So if you watch the Eagles more closely, or if you're an Eagles fan listening, I'm not saying I'm the expert on them, just saying, based off what I saw. So anyway, let's get the numbers out of the way. If you listen to me, not a huge numbers person, but I understand they have a place, and so I'll let people get the numbers first. So what do we got coming in? We got Philadelphia Eagles. Offensively, they're the number 18 scoring team in the league as far as points per game, As far as rushing yards per game, they're number 28th, so near the bottom of the league. And as far as passing yards per game, they're number 7th, so top 10. Defensively, as far as points allowed, they're number 23 in the league. And then as far as rushing yards allowed, they're number 7. And then as far as passing yards allowed, they're 30th, so almost dead last in passing yards. And then as far as sacks per game average, they're number 8, so top 10 there. So as far as the numbers, that's what you're talking about. You're looking at a highly ranked passing team and a highly ranked rush defense, as well as a highly ranked sack in front 7. So that's kind of what the numbers are. As far as their totals, they're more lower end, middle of the pack. So there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and start with kind of I would say the side-by-side comparisons, if you will. So let's start with offensive line. Offensive line, ours versus theirs. I have to be honest, I'll take their offensive line, and that you really can't argue. They have a all-pro and Jason Kelce at center. They got a Pro Bowler, Brandon Brooks, who's been an all-pro before, I believe, at one guard. And then you got Lane Johnson, who has been a Pro Bowler many times at right tackle, Jason Peters, who isn't exactly what he used to be, but has been a Pro Bowler many times as well. And so as far as our offensive line, you got Kyle Long, who's coming off an extensive injury. You got a rookie in James Daniels. You got Whitehair, who is good, but has limitations, especially with his snaps. Then you got, Bobby Massey, who hasn't been horrible, but Bobby Massey. And then Charles Leno, who I really respect. Now, if you're looking at it, I would say Jason Peters, where he is now, is comparable to Charles Leno. And I know that sounds crazy, but this isn't Jason Peters 5-6 years ago. This is Jason Peters, on the back end of his career, and he can still move and do things. I think Leno's comparable with him, but as far as the rest of it, you can't really compare. I mean, even if Kyle Long was at his prime, you'd be talking about a wash with Brandon Brooks. So let's just be honest, Bears fans, offensive line, I get them the edge. As far as wide receivers, that's an interesting one. Looks like Miller and Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel should be good to go. I think Robinson and Miller are the more safe ones, but I think Gabriel will be good to go as well. And so then you're talking about versus Alshon Jeffrey, the newly acquired Golden Tate, Nelson Aguilar. That's two very different receiving cores, to be honest with you. I would say if we're at full health, I would take us slightly because Allen Robinson can do a little more than what Alshon can do, and he can also do what Alshon can do. I would say Anthony Miller, Golden Tate. Golden Tate with the experience is of course better, but I would say you talking about comparable there. Nelson Aguilar has been kind of a one-trick pony. I think Taylor Gabriel was kind of there too. But if you're talking about real star power between those two receiving cores, then I gotta go Allen Robinson. Maybe if Golden Tate was what he was with Detroit, but he hasn't been that at all. So I would take us slightly, and that's a little homerism, I know. Tight ends, Eagles, not even close. Of course, Trey Burton, the former Eagle. But, Zach Ertz is a Pro Bowl type guy and what he's able to do all around. And Shaheen is just getting back into the swing of things. So, I'll take their tight ends and in that matchup. Running backs, I'll take ours. Look, Josh Adams was one of my favorite backs coming into the draft. I think he ended up going undrafted or was a real low pick. Look, I always say, and if you listen to my draft stuff this year, running backs, that's how the position is. It's highly dependent on other people. So Josh Adams get in the right situation. He looks just like he did in Notre Dame with 2 first-round linemen, on his line. So, running backs can be good. And so Josh Adams definitely is no slouch. But outside of that, you lose Corey Clement. Smallwood is a good north and south guy. I like him too. And then Sproles adds in a little bit of that too. But Tariq Cohen is Sproles plus some. Jordan Howard. You know what? He does not have the same skill set that Josh Adams has. But, you look at the numbers, 28th in rushing. He can be good, but he's really dictated on that line. I think Jordan Howard's able to create a little more for himself. So I'm taking our running backs. Quarterbacks. Oh, I shouldn't even answer this. I know it's going to start a firestorm. Nick Foles versus Trubisky. Nick Foles won the Super Bowl MVP, took them to the championship. Man, I didn't even think about this until right now, to be honest with you. But, Trubisky, we know what he is, this year. We know what he's going to be able to bring. He's got a live arm. He's got a lot more mobility than Nick Foles. His accuracy is just so sporadic. I gotta take Nick Foles in the quarterback matchup as far as head to head. So I know I'm gonna get chewed out for that one, but there we go. Defensive line. It's a little different because the fronts are different, but I'll take our defensive line. Akeem Hicks, Fletcher Cox, there's that. Brandon Graham doesn't scare me like he used to. And so, he never really scared me, but this year he definitely hasn't scared me. So, not saying that he's not good at anything of that. I'm just saying he's not the scary, formidable opponent that I would say he might have been before. Then, of course, they don't have Derek Barnett and a couple other guys when he curried them. But then you got Chris Long, who is, decent. So I'm counting our edge rushers and our D-line as well. So Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks is hard to pick against them. Plus Eddie Goldman. Leonard Floyd is still on his way up. I think if you had the full complement of players for, the Eagles, I probably would have picked them. But, with the injury situation and whatnot, I'm going with, us all day. So then linebackers, us all day. Hicks and Bradham, I believe is how you pronounce it. They should, or Jordan Hicks, he should be able to play and they should be starting, but Roquan and Trevathan, they just cover so much more ground, but they also can come downhill and make plays. So, taking our linebackers as well. Secondary, taking our secondary. Eddie Jackson is sounding like a game time decision. But even without him, the Eagles are decimated in the secondary. Their 2 starting corners who are really their backup corners. One of them is out, Sidney Jones, and then the other one is questionable. So he might play, but he's injured. They just lost so many people in that secondary. It's not even a contest. So clean sweep for the defense. And then as far as special teams, you know what? Their kicker's been missing some extra points too. He hasn't been as bad as Parkey, but he's been missing some stuff. And Tariq Cohen's all-pro returner at the punt returner position. And we just solidly better tackling team. So I'm going to take our special teams as well. So there we go. Head to head there. Now, talking about some of the key matchups. So number one, or on offense, I should say, the key matchup. And really, I kind of have 2. But number one, I would say the key matchup is Trubisky versus the defensive line. And what I mean by that is Fletcher Cox, from what I've seen, much like Aaron Donald, is that you can contain him if you put the resources to contain him. And Brandon Graham and I forgot Michael Bennett. Oh my God, on their D-line too, but I still take our D-line. But, you talk about Michael Bennett, Brandon Graham, Chris Long. Those guys can push the edge, but they're not immediate pressure guys. They're not Khalil Mack or anything. So if you can hold up on the edge and put resources on Fletcher Cox, you'll be fine. Now, the reason I say Trubisky is a key matchup is because he's got to do what he's been doing, even though it's something that I think is part of his game, but shouldn't be his whole game. He's got to run. And the reason I say that is because the Eagles, they don't blitz a whole lot. And so that's for a reason. They got a lot of people up front. They are penetrating up the field, front 4, and they like to get pressure with those front 4 and put everybody else in coverage. And so what that means is that a lot of times the linebacker is going to be vacated in coverage, especially on the play action. When things break down, and if we shore up the middle and things break down on the edge, Trubisky needs to step up and not only get to a clean pocket, but run. And the reason he should run is because what's going to happen is now they're going to dedicate linebackers to spying and staying, even if they aren't exactly spying, they're going to suck up a little more. And then they're going to leave more area behind them in the passing lanes. But then also what that'll do as well is that'll temper down the pass rush. And so the pass rush might not be so gung-ho. And so that's one of the key matchups. And I'm not saying he has to do it all the time, but it's going to frustrate the defense. It's going to be easy yards, and they are number 7 rush defense. Now, part of that might be because people are so busy passing on them, but even still, with that type of front, they can stop the run. And I think we'll be able to run against them, but it's going to be a lot more cheap and easy yards if Trubisky can pick those first downs up with his legs. And not only that, but extending the play as well. So that's going to be one of the keys. The other key is going to be Charles Leno versus Brandon Graham. Now, as I said before, Brandon Graham isn't the formidable foe that I think he might have, people once thought he was. And I always thought he was really good, never like Fletcher Cox level. But if he starts whooping Charles Leno, it's going to be good night. Cause like I said, you got to commit resources to Fletcher Cox, and most teams they face, when you handle the middle of the pass rush, the outside pass rush doesn't get home as much and it doesn't threaten you as much. But if we start letting Fletcher or Brandon Graham really wreak havoc on the edge, then it's going to be nowhere to go, because then if we commit resources to him, now you're talking about Fletcher Cox getting busy, and it's going to be an entirely different game. So that kind of works hand in hand with the other key matchup. Trubisky understanding and making Charles Leno look right, but also Charles Leno handling his job. Now on defense, the key matchup that we're going to have to, kind of pay attention to, but I think, we'll be pretty fine, is that's going to be our linebackers, whether it's Trevathan or Roquan Smith versus Zach Ertz. And I'm not saying that because Zach Ertz is easy to pick out because he's one of their best players. They really do go to him a whole lot, and not anything extravagant. Not even, I would say, as complicated as Travis Kelce in Kansas City. I would say it's just really him playing basketball, boxing people out, sitting down in the dead zone, catching the ball, falling forward, or breaking tackles. And it's really a safety valve and an outlet. The difference is that we have the linebackers that can turn zone to man, as I call it. And so you can start out in zone, drifting back, playing pass coverage, but once you locate a route in your area, you lock onto them and turn it into man coverage. And Roquan and Trevathan have the athleticism to do that. Now, the thing is, they're both undersized linebackers. However, they've shown they can be physical. And so I think we have the ability to jockey for position and make the pass difficult, or the catch difficult, I should say. And so even if they do make the catch, I have confidence in our ability to tackle too. But it's going to be key, because I think if we force Foles to start looking elsewhere early on and not thinking, okay, we're just going to get it to Ertz all the time, that's going to be pivotal. And the other pivotal reason is because a lot of teams will try to mask coverage with their safety on Ertz. The issue with that, and I don't really know why so many teams do this in the NFL, is most of the time these safeties are not fast enough to get over to that coverage. So they'll line up deep like they're playing zone, or they'll line up near the linebackers and then at the snap try to run over to the tight end. All you see is a quick flat route or a quick out route, and it's easy pickings. It's like, why is he wide open? Because they're trying to mask coverage. For me, I think if you get your linebackers playing rough against Ertz and showing that they can match with him, that's going to be more times that Adrian Amos doesn't have to match up, or Eddie Jackson doesn't have to match up, and they can play more middle of the field. I mean, because if you got linebackers that can expand your coverage, you can do a lot more with your other players. And that's why I've always kind of said Roquan Smith is going to up our coverage ability with that. So those are the matchups I'm looking at. Now, some of the keys to the game. Number one, as far as keys to the game, I would say we got to shut their run down early. Now, they're the 28th rushing team, so it's like, okay, they're not that great, but they hit big runs and they play action a butt ton. And so a lot of announcers call it RPOs, because now it's RPOs. There's not RPOs. Trust me, they're not RPOs. Most of the time, 99% of the time, it's play action. And it's funny that whenever they run the ball, they don't call it RPO. But if they pass the ball, oh, that was an RPO. That's not an RPO. It's a play action. And so they play action a lot. And they do this one, I call it like a play action slide, where it's like a real long outside zone, and they stretch it and then, run the receivers, flood it back the other way. I think, they're not great at outside zone, but they do bounce out a lot. And so I guess that play catches people off guard because they're scared of them bouncing out. But we have corners that tackle and they play the force really well. And we got safeties that know when to come down. So in that instance, if we play sound football, if we have, Leonard Floyd keeping his outside shoulder, we know Khalil Mack keeps his outside shoulder, and we force it up the middle, I think we'll be fine, because I don't think their O-line is really good, but I still don't think they can power it down our throats, as evidenced, by their rushing numbers. Josh Adams, again, he can explode, and that's really what we got to do, is cut down explosion plays. Like, yeah, we would like to completely shut down the run like we did against the Rams and the Vikings, but really we just got to contain it to no explosion plays. A couple yards here and there, whatever. A couple first downs here and there, whatever. But when you hit an explosion play for 20 plus yards, now the play action is going to work no matter when you use it, unless you're down a whole bunch of points, because people are going to remember that explosion play. And a lot of teams they face get sucked up by a lot of the play action, and that allows, Zach Ertz now to sneak behind. So looking to stop the run early and hold them to no explosion plays. Number 2, defense should play tight. And I know we can do both. We got bump and run corners. But sometimes we sit off 2 and let them jump routes. I think we start off pressing. The Eagles don't have good separation. Alshon Jeffrey isn't a great route runner. Golden Tate is more of a vertical route runner, and Nelson Aguilar is more of a one-trick pony. So they don't have great separation. What they do is they throw underneath a whole lot. They do slants. They do a lot of curls. They do a lot of stick routes. And then they play action and do, bootlegs or flood routes to the edge. That's really all they do. They go vertical shot once in a while to Nelson Aguilar, but they're not great separation receivers. And so with our physical guys, with our speed at linebacker, and with our pass rush ability with Mac, I say, honestly, we strap up man to man and blitz them early. Because, again, a lot of teams get in trouble trying to mask coverage with their safety and roll them at the last second, and they get caught easy. I say we line them up face to face, bring our safety or linebacker down, line them up in their face, and blitz them, 5-man blitz them early, and let Nick Foles have to make those throws and really suffocate them. And I don't think they're going to respond well. Alshon can do 50-50 catches with the best of them, but I trust Kyle Fuller. But the other guys, I don't think they're going to be winning any 50-50 balls. So if it's me, I'm coming up press and I'm coming up blitzing early to let them know that we're going to choke you down, and then try to get them 3 and out. The next key to the game is kind of the opposite, actually. The Eagles secondary play off a lot. They're turn and run type corners in secondary. They're not big guys. They're not press guys. They're not hitters. They love to turn and run. And so as a result, most of the plays that work against them are curls, comebacks, and back shoulder fades and slants. So anything really underneath, because they're looking to turn and run quickly. Why? I don't know. They have good speed. And so honestly, they got recovery speed. But for whatever reason, they like to play off and they like to turn and run. They got good pass rush, so maybe they think they can jump passes. I don't know. But for whatever reason, they play off. They play more zone and man. And I think what we need to do early on, especially against a penetrating D-line, is do slants. We should slant them to death. As a defensive coordinator, I've always said, and my mentors always said, that we'll give up the underneath stuff, because offenses are rarely patient enough to continue to do that all the way down the field. And so that's what you get. You get a lot of teams that they're killing them on the slants. They're killing them, with the dink and dunk, but it's like, okay, now we got to start taking shots, or they get behind and they don't convert. Those are the issues that offenses sometimes have. But if you have Trubisky picking up first downs, and then continuing to slant and dice them, we're going to be good, because then Allen Robinson and any of our guys really could make somebody miss, and then you're talking about a big play. But outside of that, if you slant early, the D-line's going to get frustrated. They're going to penetrate hard, but the ball's going to be out, and that's going to really frustrate them, maybe cause them to start blitzing more, and then you could really hit them with a big shot. But then also with the slants, curls or stick routes, like 7-6 yard curls. You push vertical, let the corner turn around and run. You boom, come back. I don't trust Trubisky on back shoulder fades, to be honest. So I'm thinking more, curl stuff. But then receiver screens. Again, they're not big guys. Even their slots, they're not big guys. And so they're not going to be super physical. So if you're doing a trip set and you want to do a trip bubble or do a receiver smoke screen, things like that are going to get the ball out quick. It's going to frustrate the pass rush, and it's going to be easy yards. So that's kind of what I'm looking for from the offense. Again, we want the run game to be good. I think we can play power against them, but I think coming out and really getting the ball out quick is going to frustrate that defense and make them impatient. And then lastly, speaking of run, we need to do zone. I think we could do power with them, as I said, but from what I've seen, their big splash plays is usually when the player or the team is running zone, some type of inside zone. Because again, the linebackers flow heavy. The front is very penetrating. They flow hard to the play, and the cutback is usually there because they're not always disciplined. And so I think doing some type of inside zone runs with them is going to really help us more than trying to go man to man and power against them, which I think we still can. But from what I've seen, the best plays against their defense is when people are running some type of inside zone. And so not only is the inside zone going to really get them flowing heavy, but once you hit a big run, kind of like I said on defense, they're going to be so susceptible to the play action. Their linebackers get beat on play action so bad because they are coming downhill, and then as soon as they see the quarterback turn those shoulders, they're like straight vacating, and it's not even close. They don't even know where they're running to half the time. So you're talking about some type of inside zone and then hitting a bootleg or naked and, rolling back the opposite way. Trubisky on the run, throwing darts is going to be open all day. So I would like to see us do a more zone run approach than kind of that typical power approach. So those are my kind of keys to the game. But yeah, I mean, I think it'll be pretty good. I mean, it's going to be a good game. They definitely have some weapons. You're talking about they like their 2 tight end set, and that stuff is versatile. When you have Ertz and Goddard, it could be 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, traditional under center. It could be shotgun. It could be Ertz in the slot, or, they could have 2 to one side trips. They could do a lot of things with those 2 tight ends, and, the tight ends can block too. So they got a versatile set. And of course, you got the experience with Nick Foles in them, but I think our defense will do definitely pretty well. But it will be, more of a challenge than we had against the Vikings. That's definitely for sure. And then defensively, again, those guys get after it on the D-line, and we haven't had much pressure, from many teams. The Vikings definitely showed us something, and I would venture to say the Vikings D-line is better than this one. So I think we definitely could be okay. I'm not scared of Fletcher Cox as most people are, but Fletcher Cox, first team All-Pro, Jason Kelce, first team All-Pro, Brandon Brooks, but they're so decimated with injuries. This is why I wanted the Eagles over the Vikings in their divisional opponent. But, some people are like, oh, they're on momentum. I watched those games. They were behind most of those games, and they barely won most of those games. So they're more dangerous when they're behind. So that's something we're going to have to look at. But as far as keeping the lead, they're not good at that. And so they're better when they're playing from behind, and they scrap out tough wins, but so have we. So I honestly don't expect this to be any type of blowout. And I think it's going to be a challenge because they know how to push out a tough win. So do we. I expect this to kind of go like it's been early on. It's going to be a defensive struggle, a lot of field position, punting back and forth, seeing who can get in the right position. And then it's just going to come down to turnovers. Without the turnovers that the Eagles got, they wouldn't won most of these games. So we got to protect the ball. And so it sounds simple, but hey, there's a reason we talk about defense and run game in the playoffs. You stop the run, you win the turnover battle. Pretty simple right there. So, I'm definitely excited for it. But yeah, go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about, previewing our matchup against the Eagles. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around, get the convo started. And remember, stay up and bear down.